Thank you, Rob. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I think it's Happy Tuesday night. I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you all about how to apply for financial aid. We're actually going to touch on scholarships too, so that's quite exciting. And like Rob said, I really want to leave a lot of room this evening for because I think, especially during this sort of March Madness, aside from basketball, parents and families have a lot of questions about their upcoming financial aid or maybe their current financial aid. If you're a student, parent, or counselor, we want to be able to answer your questions tonight, and that's our goal. So let's get started, and let's just take a minute to take a step back about what are we talking about when we talk about financial aid. I know a lot of you hear all about it, you read about it from peers, friends, students, and so forth. So when we're defining financial aid, it's generally a term that colleges use to describe the programs, so they're federal programs sometimes, that help families pay for college or even vocational training. So it's a way of helping pay. And when I break down financial aid, and I think you'll notice a lot of other professionals and colleges and maybe books and articles that you read, it's really broken down into 3 points. So the first one being gift aid. Gift aid, I would put the word free, F-R-E-E, free money, which can be grants or scholarships that don't need to be repaid. So if you're a senior family right now and you're waiting for letters from your colleges, then you're probably hoping and waiting for some free money to help pay for that cost of college. If you're a junior family, you're definitely going to be seeking out that free money and looking for what you guys can hone in for comparing what colleges is going to cost for your rising senior. There's also another component number 2, which is work study money. And work money can come from the federal government also. It's a program, and it's earned by the student as a payment for a job on campus. And the way a student can be awarded work study money is they fill out the free application for federal student aid, and that we will talk about later on in our presentation. That's the gateway to receive work study if you are eligible. So you have to be eligible in order to receive it. Loans, there's loans, which is always considered like self-help money. So loans can be borrowed either in the student's name or the parent's name, but remember, loans always have to be repaid, okay? Some of them have interest, some of them don't, and we can talk a little bit about that later. So we have gift aid, work aid, and loans. Now, also when we categorize financial aid, we're going to categorize it into need-based versus non-need-based. So let's just start with need-based aid. So need-based aid can come in 4 different parts. First, we have like federal and state grants. So you can receive a federal Pell Grant, for example, or you can maybe receive a state grant depending on what state you live in. And the federal Pell Grant and the state grant can be obtained if you're need eligible and you have your free application for federal student aid on file. And those 2 do not have to be repaid. Now, some state grants require a supplement formula or form. So some of the requirements on that could be GPA, they could be asset required, income ceiling. So you're going to have to take a look at what your state requires. And when filling out the FAFSA, you'll, on your confirmation page, they have this great new link where you can connect direct to your state grant applications. That's pretty cool this year. The work study program is also under need-based aid, and again, that's money that's earned from by your students. So they'll get like a job on campus. Maybe they will work at the bookstore, or maybe they're a teacher assistant, or they could work in the financial aid office, and they would receive a check. Maybe they work 1, 2, 3, 5 hours a week, and they get a dollar amount on their award letter, their financial aid award letter, that they can work up to that dollar amount for the year. Also, need-based aid could be in the form of that self-help money that we talked about, the subsidized student loan. So a subsidized student loan is a low-interest loan that's in the student's name. Each year, if the student is eligible and fills out the FAFSA, then they would get a certain amount. There's like a freshman package, a sophomore package, a junior package, and if you do take out the subsidized federal student loan, you can, you don't need to make payments to that loan until 6 months after the student graduates. And there's a low interest rate on that loan. There's also now a Parent Plus loan piece that also has a low interest rate, and that Parent Plus loan, sometimes you'll see it on the award letters where it could be meeting the gap sometimes. So it could be the difference of your need-based aid, your gift aid, your work study, and then there's that Parent Plus amount. Now that parent loan is in the parent's name, and it does have a low interest rate. And that Parent Plus loan, you do make payments while the student is in college. So it's really important to be comparing on which loans fit your family. So you're taking out loans that fit your family. And if you don't want loans and you just want to use the free money or work study, absolutely you'll want to choose that. Some examples of non-need-based aid: some colleges offer scholarships or university grants. Some have, there's private scholarships, and then there's the unsubsidized student loan. And the unsubsidized student loan is another loan that's in the student's name, but it does accrue interest while the student goes to college. It's a low interest rate, and also the payback or the repayment for that is 6 months after the student graduates college. So those are examples of need-based aid and non-need-based aid. I hope you're writing down your questions because we're ready to answer them at the end of all the slides. My favorite tip right now, so if you're a junior parent, a rising senior, or junior student, or a senior student, hopefully you've used the net price calculator, or otherwise known as the NPC. The net price calculator, there's one located on every college site. So if you type in the college and then you type in financial aid, it should be located on that front page there, or within the first few pages. So the net price calculator is a tool that students can estimate what the net cost is going to be to a particular college or university. My favorite thing to do, but I'm totally in love with Excel spreadsheets, is you grab an Excel spreadsheet, you put the colleges in that the student is applying to or applied to, you put in your information into it, and it'll give you the net price or what your expected family contribution will be. Included will be tuition, fees, room and board, some indirect costs. Indirect costs means that those costs are not billed to you. So books, supplies, transportation, and personal supplies, those are in the cost of attendance, but those are not on the bill. You get billed for tuition, fees, room and board. So that's the difference in there. So they'll have a total cost, but remember, you're only getting billed for tuition, fees, room and board. It's a great tool, the net price calculator. It's a great tool to use like before you begin your application process. So if you're a junior in high school right now, or a family or a counselor, and students are creating their list for colleges for next year, you know, have them as a little one night or a weekend assignment to go and look at all the net price calculators for all the colleges they're thinking of applying to, and that's how they can begin the application process. A key point to applying to college now and always, but especially in this economy, is knowing how much your family has to spend on college so that you stay within the budget. So you're having those kitchen table conversations where location, your major, what your career objective is going to be, and the cost of that college. So if you know those factors, then when applying for college, you're applying for a college that's going to fit your needs. So as we've talked about financial aid, some of the applications, let's kind of dive deep into what you're going to need in order to get ready. Or if you've already done this, once you've done these applications, what it means to you now if you're waiting to hear from colleges. So the first application, which gets you your federal money, is the free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as the FAFSA. And the second application, which isn't necessarily mandatory but is recommended, is the College Scholarship Service Profile. Its short name is the CSS Profile. The CSS Profile is located on the College Board. You can find a list of colleges that use the CSS Profile and the dates that those forms are due. Also, some colleges have their own institutional scholarship or financial aid application. For instance, Princeton has its own financial aid application. University of Pennsylvania has its own financial aid application. So if those schools were on a list or going to be on the list for your family, you know, you're going to need to look at those websites to download those applications. So my favorite tips right now would be to get a folder, have these application websites, links, which I'm going to give you later on, ready so that you know to check. Now, one way to keep checking on the colleges is to go to the college and type in financial aid. So if you would pick a college like University of Alabama, you would type in University of Alabama financial aid. Once you get to their financial aid site, if you click on the link that says how to apply, it'll give you all the applications that are needed for that college. It'll also give you the deadlines or priority deadlines for that college. So that's like a little insider sneak tip that I'm giving you tonight. Go to the college, type in financial aid, type in how to apply, or you'll see a hot link that says how to apply, and look for those deadlines and forms, and kind of keep a binder going of what you think will be the applications that you need for later on, or make sure that you filled out those applications for now. The key to all signing of the FAFSA is the federal PIN. So I have left here on this slide for you the site you need to go to. So when you're done with this presentation, this webinar, you could go to pin.ed.gov, okay? And both the student and the custodial parent will need a PIN. So there'll be two PINs, one for the student and one for the parent. And keep in mind when filling out the FAFSA, it is a student application. So if you have the form in front of you, you're going to take a look at it. The blue section for this year is the student section. The purple section is the parent section. Anytime you're in the blue section, they're asking about the student section. It actually says that on the left side. So you're going to fill out all the questions that have about the student. And then when you get to the next section, the parent or the purple section, you're going to go ahead and fill out all the information about the parent or custodial parent. And that's going to include financial information for both. And then when you're ready to submit, you're going to click submit, and you're going to enter the PIN for the student. Student's going to agree to all the terms, and then you're going to enter the PIN for the parent. You're also going to be able to use the PIN to check the status of your FAFSA. So now in March Madness, while everyone's waiting to hear back from their colleges, or they've heard back from some of their colleges, they want to make sure that the school, you want to make sure that the school has received your application. So it will be located in the student center of the FAFSA. It'll also be located in your college student center, making sure that you check the status, verify, and correct the FAFSA. So if you have your tax information now and you need to go back into the FAFSA to correct your information, you're going to need your PIN to go back in there and log in, and a password. And if you're going to want to add additional schools, you'll also need to get your PIN out and log back in to add additional schools. And even if you're changing personal information, if you've moved or something like that, you'll need your PIN. So your PIN is really, you know, a handy item that you're going to want to have in your folder at your fingertips to get in and out of your FAFSA. So what does this free application for federal student aid do? Well, one of the things it does is it calculates a family's expected family contribution, otherwise known as the EFC. It determines the eligibility for need-based aid. And when I talk about eligibility, I mean when the colleges used cost of attendance, they minus your expected family contribution, and this will equal the need-based aid that you may receive. So it's cost of attendance minus expected family contribution equals need-based aid. And the first step to apply for funding through the federal direct loan program, if parents or students want to exercise the federal student loan option, you absolutely have to have your free application for federal student aid on file. So it's kind of the gateway to exercise those federal low interest rate loans. So if you're not sure, or will you qualify, do you not qualify, I always recommend fill out your application because you never know if you want to exercise that loan option. And the application also allows for other certain grants and scholarships. So if you're applying for scholarships, maybe private scholarships through Zinch or private scholarships through the colleges that you're applying to, you may need to supply your PDF or proof that you submitted your FAFSA. And in order to do that, you'll have to have it on file. You'll log in using your PIN, and you'll send it to the grant or scholarship to verify that you actually did file it. Getting ready. Okay, so my fave thing to do is, remember how we talked about the folder? Well, I'm kind of a binder divider girl. So you want to get these things ready in order to start your application process. So you absolutely want to have copies of everyone's driver's license, copies of everyone's social security cards. Now, this is key. In fact, this year, I recommend that you dig those social security cards out early. Make sure that everyone's last name and first name matches what you're filling in your admission application and your financial aid piece, because they are going to check this and they need to match. So your social security number, make sure you print it carefully or type it on your admission application, and type carefully on your financial aid applications too. You're going to want in your folder a copy of your 2013 W-2 forms, everyone in the family that got one. You're also going to want a copy of your 2013 federal income tax form, and if you haven't filed that yet, as soon as you get that, you're going to want to put that in your folder. Any 1099s that your family has received, you'll want to put that in there. You'll also want to put a copy of records of untaxed income and current bank statements. So if each child or every family member has a bank statement, you're going to want to do that. And this is all just for personal accounts. So you'll want to keep a personal section and then maybe a business section. For some of the applications, you'll need business information, and for some, you'll just need personal applications. So you'll want to have a certain section for your business, farm, or other real estate records. And then if you have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, you'll want to get a copy of your ending balance for the quarter and maybe update that at the end of the year so you have the most current copy in your folder. Once you've submitted your FAFSA, you'll get this confirmation letter. I have an example here on the slide for you. The confirmation email will also, it'll be mail email to you, so you'll see it after you're done with your FAFSA, and then you'll get it emailed probably within, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, and then in about a day or 2 days, you'll get your student aid report. And so here's an example of the confirmation letter that I wanted to show you. You can see if in the orange little arrow there where it says start your state application, that's brand new. And so that's where you can click on applying for state award if you are eligible for that. It'll also give you a list of schools. In this particular situation, we just have Arizona State here. I love the columns that are self-reported by the colleges now. The first column talks about graduation rate. So at Arizona State, they self-reported that 57% of the students that go there graduate from there. And the retention rate is 80% of that 57 graduate from there, stay there, start there, and finish there. So that's pretty cool to know that they have such a high retention rate. And you'll notice as you get to the below that, the estimated expected family contribution right there is a number for this particular family. Yours can be different, and it is an estimated number, so it maybe can change a little bit. Also, this student was offered a direct Stafford loan package for $6,500, so that's a sophomore package. So this is an example of what your confirmation page will look like, and you should file it, print it, keep it in case you need it for the school or for referring to later on in your process. So reviewing the EFC, or what we said before, the expected family contribution, it's the amount, the expected from parents' various families to family according to the ability to pay derived from the information submitted in the free application for federal student aid. So this amount is a formula. So there's a federal formula which considers a lot of different variables like where you live, how many people are in your house, how many people are going to college, the oldest parent, highest level of education. So this formula is A plus B minus D equals C. And then the bottom line is it equals your expected family contribution. So it's a formula, it's one formula, and that's how the federal side works, okay? Verification. So this is what families are doing right now. Families who have senior students who have applied to college, are going through verification right now. About 1/3 of all FAFSA applications are selected for verification. And verification can come in many different ways. One of the ways is that colleges post documents that students need to supply on the Student Center. These documents normally, just like normally, don't really have a due date, but can hold up your financial aid. So as students and families should get in a habit from March 1st until May 1st of looking weekly on each of the college they've either gotten into or on their list that they're waiting to hear from to see if they're requesting documents in order to process your financial aid. Some of these documents can be verification forms, non-tax filer forms, maybe they need specific income level forms, so really need to get those in a timely basis. The verification process is not complete until all the forms have been reviewed, and as I said, additional forms can pop up at any time. So let's say you look at it today and there's 3 forms in it, you get those in a week or 2 later, you can go back on and they might want more verification. So I want to stress this is key to making it happen right now so that families know exactly how much it's going to cost for college and what they can expect. And that way they'll get their unofficial award letter on time and they can make a good choice for a good fit for their student on May 1st or before May 1st. So let's talk about scholarships. While we're waiting for colleges to let us know if we got in, or while we're working through the verification process, or even during November, which is considered, National Scholarship Month, students can be applying for scholarships. I mean, they can start as early as 7th and 8th grade in order to apply for scholarships to help them pay for their education. And what's the key point about scholarships? It's free money, money that does not need to be paid back. So that's key here. Scholarships can be available for students that, for academics, maybe for the arts, maybe for community service, maybe for athletics. It's a great idea. Remember how I talked about the little Excel sheet before when you're applying for college? Another great idea for Excel spreadsheets might be for tracking your scholarships. So if you put on the left-hand column the name of the scholarship and then the date that it's due and the examples of items that you need to make that scholarship complete, and then actually the day that you submit it. That might be a good way to track for scholarships. Tracking scholarships you can make it easier by if you create some sort of maybe portfolio or resume of items that the student is involved in or that the student does starting in 7th grade. So 7th or 8th grade or 9th grade, you can start writing if they were in certain clubs, if they were in a leadership position, if they were in community service outside their school. And that way, when they're filling out the scholarships, they can have that document, sort of that resume of everything they've done during their academic high school, maybe / middle school years, and that can be an easy transferable item into the scholarship application. Also, there are financial need scholarships, and there's certain fields, maybe if a student is studying in a certain field, they might have to meet certain criteria. Also, some employers might have student tuition-based scholarships. So students, check with your parents and see if they're offering scholarships at their work, and maybe you can apply to those. Scholarships are awarded, remember, as I said earlier, either by the college or by an organization, maybe a corporation, employer, church. Zinch has scholarships. So any of these opportunities for you to be applying for scholarships, you should be applying. Some tips I like to tell my families about applying for scholarships is you should devote time every week to searching for scholarships and spend time applying. So it's all about the amount of scholarships that you apply for, not just 4 or 5 with bigger total amounts awarded. So no amount is too small because they all add up together. Sometimes if you've written an essay and that essay kind of goes for several different scholarships, or maybe you have several essays that you can kind of piece together, I would say you should encourage your students, you should try and take your essays and repurpose them, making sure that they fit exactly for the scholarship that you're applying to. And be aware of scams or red flags. If it feels uncomfortable, definitely use your gut on that one and don't apply. And always, first, check to see if there are institution-based scholarships. So the colleges that that student is applying to has a special scholarship page that they can be looking for scholarships for that particular institution. And also in high school, now that high schools have their own websites, they may have a career center and they might have their own list of scholarships that they give out at the high school level. So take a look at those also, because that brings the circle in a little bit, and maybe they're competing against the community, a smaller number, so that's always a good thing. So important links I really want to leave you with are the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA.ed.gov. So that's the site you want to fill out the application for. If you're a senior student, you should already have it on file. If you're a rising senior student, you're going to be filling out the application for 2015-16. Hope I have that right because we're doing 14-15. 15-16. And then for the CSS profile, you're going to go to profileonline.collegeboard.org. And then a great resource that I use a lot, I tell families and parents to use a lot, is Federal Student Aid. And it's at studentaid.ed.gov. And they have every question and every answer that you can possibly imagine about loans, work study, gift aid, anything that you can think about, they're going to have the answer on this. So I would definitely take a look at that. And then scholarships, Zinch is, I love their website. It's great. It has great profile, filling it out. The students seem to really enjoy the layout and the platform, and they have good stuff there. So definitely visit Zinch. And now I think we can go to questions, Rob, if we have any.
Oh yeah, we have a couple. So if you haven't asked your question yet, please send it.
Okay, good.
We have probably about 30 or so in the queue, so I'll try and get through as many as possible. First one, Jodi, if a household income is over $150,000, is there any chance of getting financial aid? If so, how does one go about it? Any tips you can share will be great.
Yeah, I think that household income, you should absolutely apply. I don't know what colleges your student is applying to, but sometimes when students apply to a college that's more expensive, they might offer more financial aid. So your income is definitely in the bracket, and that yesterday there were some reports out that said that about 1.3 million families did not apply for financial aid that actually would have qualified. So apply.
Great, thank you. Next question, any information on scholarships or financial aid for undocumented students, for DACA recipients?
So scholarship opportunities for undocumented, I probably would, obviously for undocumented students, you cannot get federal money, but I would look at the college website and also take a look at other private scholarships. So if you're going on to Zinch, you might be eligible, or you might find some scholarships that personally suits you. So go take a look at that and see if those help you.
Great, thank you. We have an aunt asking about her nephew. She has a 529 account set up, $15,000 in it. How will that 529 affect his eligibility for financial aid?
So that 529 is considered a parent asset. So that's a parent asset, and the parent asset gets dinged a little bit less than a student asset. So good job, Aunt. So that will not affect the student at all as far as financial aid.
Okay, great. A couple questions about family situations. Kids living in different places. I'll just pair them together. One is a student lives with his mother, but the father claims the student on his tax return. Whose information should the student use for the FAFSA? The other one is I have one child who lives with her mother in California. We are divorced since she is living under her roof and she is getting remarried. Is the EFC going to be coming from ex-wife?
Okay. Can we go to the first one? You might have to repeat the second one. Okay, so the first one, it doesn't matter who claims the student on the tax return. The student is with the custodial parent. If the student lives with the custodial parent 51% of the time, then that is considered the custodial parent. Okay, so that's the answer to the first question. And then Rob, I needed clarification on the second one.
Yep, so child lives in California, so lives in a different state with the mother. Father is divorced, mother is getting remarried. Is the EFC going to come from the ex-wife and the new husband, or the father?
From mom and new stepdad. If child lives in California with mom, it's mom and new stepdad. If I understood that correct.
Thanks. For deferred compensation, does this have to be reported on the FAFSA, and does it count against aid?
It has to be reported, and it doesn't count against aid.
All right. What's a good timeline for applying for financial aid? So if you're a student, let's say we have questions from some sophomores and from some juniors. Can you give kind of a brief overview on when they should be looking at scholarships and financial aid?
Okay. So here you go, you guys. This is my timeline. If you're a junior parent, so let's start off with junior parents. If you're a junior parent right now, your student should be looking around to seeing what colleges they might want to apply to. So they're looking around, they're creating a list right now of the colleges they think they're going to apply to in the fall of 2014. So financial aid kind of happens a little bit overlapping with admission. Your student will start applying for admission to their college in the summer of 2014. The CSS profile will go up on October 1st of 2014, and the FAFSA will go up on January 1st, 2015. Most colleges will have either a January 15th, February 1st, February 15th, March 2nd, or March 15th deadline for financial aid, unless your student is applying early action or early decision. If they're applying early action and early decision, their financial aid applications may be due in early November. The best way to check is to go on the college website, go to financial aid, and to look at how to apply or deadlines, and it'll explain it right there. But that should be a timeline. If you start in August, you'll be right on track.
Thanks, Jodi. Next question, is it okay to negotiate financial aid with the college your child chooses? If so, how do you go about doing that?
Very carefully. So is it okay? If your student got into a college and you feel that you want to let the college know that something is happening in your house that is not, you are not able to write on those applications, yes, please let the financial aid officers know. They absolutely want to know. They're there to help you. You let them know what's going on. If another college did give you a different kind of aid money, whether it's merit or need-based, you can mention it to them. But not all colleges will negotiate. So, just kind of let them know what's going on in your family, what's happened, and they're probably going to be very truthful of whether or not they can meet your needs or not.
Great, thanks. We have a question about student and parent loans. How do you go about investigating, researching, and securing those loans? What do you recommend?
So the first thing that's going to happen is once you receive your unofficial award letter, it might already have a loan amount on it that your student is eligible, or a Parent Plus amount that you are eligible for. If you would like to take out those loans, you will be directed to studentloans.gov or through the college site. The student and the parent, if you're both taking out a loan, will need to fill out a master promissory note saying that you solemnly swear that you understand you're taking out a loan and that you need to pay it back. The student will also need to fill out an entrance counseling exam. It takes about 45 minutes. That entrance counseling exam will explain to the student that you're taking out a loan, the terms of the loan. It'll also explain about repayment and how much you should take out for a loan. So if you're going to be in a starting salary of your career of about $40,000 when you graduate college, you should have a rule of thumb that you shouldn't take out more than $40,000 that you're going to pay back in about 10 years of loans. So in comparing federal versus private, feel free to go ahead and compare federal and private, and make sure that you have all the terms and the facts when you're doing that.
Great. Another loan question. When should a parent co-sign on a student loan? And what's the difference between a parent co-signing and a parent not? What are the ramifications?
Okay, so all students need co-signers now on their student loans. So they don't have a choice. They can't take out their student loans without a co-signer anymore. So if a parent chooses not to do that, then the parent then they can't take out that loan. What was the second part of that, Rob?
You answered it perfectly. We're all set.
Okay, great.
Another loan-related question. If a parent has experienced both bankruptcy and foreclosure, does that affect the parent's eligibility for education loans for the student?
So it's kind of a two-part question. If the parent has unfortunately gone through some hard times, they can try to apply for the Parent Plus loan. They will need a reference. And if they are declined, and this is for only undergraduate, if they are declined, they can bring the decline notice to the College Financial Aid office and let the college know that they were declined in the Parent Plus loan. And there might be some other way that the financial aid office can help them. So I know it's really uncomfortable, and maybe you've been through hard times, but if you let the college know, they might have another avenue for you to go down. So the communication is key.
Great, thanks, Jodi. We have a family that completed the FAFSA. The EFC was around 19,000, but then when the college admitted the student, there was a sizable scholarship that she received, and her net total cost went up to around 31,000. So there was a $12,000 gap. Is this common, and is there any way to have the university help cover this gap, or how should this family go about covering that $12,000 gap?
So the $12,000 gap, unfortunately, happens to a lot of families. So if I'm understanding correctly, 12,000 is what the family's still going to owe the college. And the sad thing is there's only a couple ways to take care of the gap. The number one, not in this order either. One of the ways to take care of the gap is some colleges have payment plans. So maybe you can take that $12,000 and break it into even payments and pay it throughout the year. So that's one way to meet the gap amount. The other way is maybe if you want to or not want to, there's that Parent Plus loan to meet the gap amount. The other way is if you have savings, there's different ways of maybe taking out a loan and making payments. So you can sort of be creative in meeting the gap amount. You can also do scholarships. So maybe your student applies to scholarship and wins scholarships or is awarded scholarships for $12,000. So those are the best ways to meet that gap amount. And that's a tough one.
Thanks, Jodi. Another question about a specific situation. A student's mother passed away last summer and the father is not in the picture. Student lives with her grandmother. Should the grandma's information be mother on FAFSA, or how should that be completed?
No. The student's grandma is not mom on FAFSA. I don't know if the student has any relationship with the dad. So that would be one thing. If the student has no relationship with the dad, you need to contact the financial aid office and explain to them what's going on. If the student does have contact, if he is your biological dad, you will need to use dad's information. He will be the custodial parent. If you have no relation, there's 13 dependency questions, and maybe one of the dependency questions at the very end says, at the risk of being homeless or an emancipated minor. Maybe one of those last 4 questions might fit into your criteria. Since I don't know your situation, I highly recommend you read those last 4 questions under the dependency status and talk to your counselor about that. And if you need to contact me offline, I'm happy to help.
Thanks. Does a student have a better chance of getting a scholarship if they apply early action or early decision?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna be bold, and I'm gonna say no. A lot of students this year who applied early action and early decision were moved into the regular pool. So, I know that's hearsay out there, but do your best in high school and work really hard academically. And then if early action or early decision is something that you feel confident that's a school that's a fit for you, then you should do it. But it's not necessarily about whether you're going to get a scholarship or not. It might be more of a fit question. I don't really do the admission side.
Is there any advantage to stashing away deferred or putting aside deferred compensation to reduce EFC?
No, there's no advantage to it. If you have deferred income, I would definitely put it in a retirement vehicle. They're not included in the federal formula, and sometimes they're not included in the institutional formula. So if you are going to put money away for retirement, then obviously use a retirement vehicle that's recognized by the financial aid offices.
Thanks, Jodi. We have time for about 2 more questions, so fire away. We still have a few in the queue.
Wow, that's quick.
Any questions you want? We have one here just kind of following up about the co-signing. Even if the student is an adult, so even if they're 18 or older, the parent still has to co-sign. That's a new rule.
Well, actually, to clarify that rule, even if they're 18, under the federal guidelines, students are not adults until they're 24 in financial aid. So even though they're 18, they still need a co-signer. They're not going to be considered an independent until they either turn 24 or graduate college with their bachelor's.
Question about the Pell Grant. What are the eligibility requirements? And in a similar vein, someone wants to know if they can figure out why their daughter was not offered any Pell Grants.
Usually, and I could be quoted wrong. So usually, your adjusted gross income needs to be about about 60,000 each, under 60,000 for your adjusted gross income. So if you're way over that, then you're not eligible for a Pell Grant. So I'm not sure of your specific financial situation, but Pell Grant definitely has an income ceiling.
All right, and final question. In terms of middle income families or middle class families, are there specific scholarships or financial aid tactics that they should focus on?
Apply for private scholarships. I think that should be on the top of your list. But unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're making between 100 and 160 or 160 and 200, cost of college is there's not going to be a lot of free money, federal free money. So take a look at colleges that were within your financial reach, and definitely have an open conversation with your student about not applying to colleges that won't fit for your family financially, so that you go into debt.
Thanks, Jodi. I'm going to combine actually one final question here. It's kind of two questions combined, asking about tax returns.
Okay.
So for the next admissions cycle, what tax return should be filed by the family? And another question, if the family has not filed their taxes because they haven't finished them yet, is that going to hurt the student in terms of getting financial aid through the FAFSA?
Okay, so I'm going to go with the last question first. So if you haven't finished your tax return and your student is starting college in 2014, then you are going to, you need to get on it. I mean, it's not late, but you want to get that in as soon as possible and use the IRS data retrieval tool on the FAFSA. So I encourage you to get that going, but obviously April 15th is the deadline. Some colleges do want them sooner, so check with that college to make sure and then give them a call. And then the first question you asked about tax returns. So colleges are going to want, if your student is a junior, they're going to want 2014 tax returns.
All right. Well, thank you, Jodi. Really appreciate your time and all the great information, and thank you for all.
Thank you, Rob.
So we will be sending out a follow-up to this presentation. So we'll send a video link and additional information within the next 2 days. So everyone hang tight. And if you have any other questions, you can reply to that email. So thanks again, Jodi, and everyone have a great night.